This is Conversation Balloons, a podcast of interviews with experts and friends about all things generational. I'm your host, Leah Farish. This episode is sponsored by the Herzog Foundation. Today we're talking to Kevin Waldman, founder and CEO of PsychForm, a laboratory dedicated to restoring intellectual courage and honesty to psychological science. His preparation for this work includes a master's in clinical psychology at Northwestern and a research internship at Harvard, among other wonderful experiences. And it's our pleasure to talk to you today, Kevin.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to talk to you as well.
Well, you got on my radar recently with an article in The Hill about your research with college students, 1,452, that found some really interesting things about development of their identity and their experience at college. So would you tell us about that?
Sure. The study was the result of an experience I was witnessing myself as an older student at the University of Michigan. I witnessed quite a bit of bias in the classroom. And, at the beginning, I just laid low about it, especially because I was so much older than everybody. I figured, let's just get through this. And then it turned into students starting to come to me and ask for advice on how to get through certain topics. And then I started interviewing, which led to setting up a survey. And it was just asking students about polarizing topics, which we hear a very one-sided narrative towards in the classroom. And it turned into what you read about in The Hill.
And what were your findings?
We used two different universities, the University of Michigan and Northwestern. We did find, I can just give you a quick rundown. So out of the 1,452 students, approximately 88% admitted that they pretend to hold more progressive views. This, by the way, doesn't mean these students are conservative in any way. Most of the students at both universities identify as liberal, but it's the classroom narrative that we're trying to investigate. And so 78% that they self-censor on what they believe about gender identity, 72% self-censor on their political beliefs, 68% self-censor on their family values. 87% privately support a binary model of gender, which obviously we now know at this point is a very polarizing topic, especially on college campuses. And 9% said that they supported a limited gender fluidity, and only 7% of the students that we spoke with said that when speaking and no one hearing the results, that they believe that gender is on a spectrum. So only 7% really expressed believing that. There's a couple of other things on the list, but these are the main ones that started the studies widely talked about.
Did it surprise you that it was that prevalent that students are self-censoring?
It did surprise me. I guess to say at the beginning, I don't want to be cynical about this because it's draining to be cynical, but I'm less surprised today than I was in 2023. I was shocked at the results when they started to come in at the University of Michigan. And by the time I got to Northwestern, I was just so excited to figure out if it was similar, and it really was. And the student bodies at these universities are quite different. So that's something that I found that gives it validity to me, is knowing both student bodies fairly well, and seeing that the results are, that the schools are very different in terms of the student body and how the results could be so similar for different reasons, but similar nonetheless.
For different reasons? What do you mean by that?
I think that, the reason people self-censor at the University of Michigan is more of a social reason, and it's more intellectually driven at Northwestern. That's kind of what I mean by that. I think that people at the student bodies in general have very different motivators on what make them enjoying the college experience. Yeah.
Okay. But both, it impacts for both campuses, it impacts the student's identity formation, doesn't it? That whole process.
We're learning so much about all this depression and anxiety on campus, and I really believe that this is part of it. I think that, and it's something that we're calling integrity fatigue, because it's so much exhaustion from constantly having to perform a belief system without the ability to really form it for yourself. At that developmental stage, emerging adulthood, you really need a lot of trial and error. You need to be rejected. You need to fail. And we're setting these kids up where if you say the wrong thing, you don't fail, you're canceled. So they don't say the wrong thing. They just simply say the script. And this is not good. It's fine for someone my age to be shoved into an environment for a couple of years where I have to pretend. But at that stage of life, you're really creating who you could potentially end up being in adulthood. And it's really dangerous, I think, to continuously push this.
It's ironic, isn't it, that one of the things you need to be doing is trying out your framework and, defending your episteme, and, you may change it. It may not survive a lot of challenge and scrutiny in a campus setting, but if you never speak your beliefs, then you'll never test them. You'll never know. All you know is you disagree, but you don't dare say anything. Now, you mentioned having felt, uh, picked up on some of this in your own experience. Does that mean that you're a flaming conservative who just feels left out of, the culture of the campus?
No, I'm a gay liberal man. I walked into this experience just so shocked. I mean, a lot of what the professors were saying in 6 years ago when I started this thing, I was happy about at the beginning because that seemed like I was very blindly loyal to liberal politics, and that's not the case today. Certainly for me personally, but no, I don't feel left out. I think that what I'm doing is actually helping liberal students because this isn't liberal what we're witnessing. It's masquerading as liberal and it's extremely conservative. It just happens to be on the opposite of right-wing politics. It's very extreme leftist politics, so it's not liberal whatsoever.
You said in this article that I read, this is not simply peer pressure. It is identity regulation at scale, and it is being institutionalized. Um, and did you really find, though, does your study really establish it? It establishes their self-censoring, but does it really show or prove that that leads to harm? That there's any lasting harm, or is it just does it just delay the identity formation process, or maybe somehow benefit it? Did you show harm actually?
That's a good question, and it's something that I'd love to investigate. But at this point, I don't really think that the study can really be representative of the future. I wish it could be. And at Psych Form, I'm really interested in collaborating with people who could help me investigate that further. At this point, it's more just seeing the psychological issues on campus and connecting them to this performative behavior. There's no doubt in my mind, though. I mean, off the record, basically just saying I think in my own personal uh, experience that this will cause that. And there are certainly predictors, but it's impossible for the study at this point to be definitively saying that.
The 73% reported mistrust in conversation about values with their close friends. I would think that shows that this atmosphere is pernicious to healthy relationships.
Absolutely. This is one of the scariest parts of it. This is the factor of the study that makes me really want to push this being widely acknowledged, is because historically, by the way, we've done quite a bit of research that indicates, and we all know, like college campuses, there's a lot of performative behavior, especially in a liberal tone. So, but to this degree, where people, the students, are afraid of their own friends hearing what they believe or may not believe, but may think or want to explore, to the point of reporting, at least in this particular study, that 73% of them would hold back and not trust their friends knowing what their personal beliefs are. That's disturbing to me, because you can be able to perform in the classroom and get an A, whatever, but to be lying to your best friends. I mean, these were girlfriends that were in sororities that we initially started talking to, and it just concerns me quite a bit.
And there was something about a third of members of intimate relationships were even concealing their true views.
The young men are afraid to be conservative, I think, because of the stigma that goes with that, and the judgment, and I could go on and on about that one. I won't though. It seems like, I think that even in dating, or just having a physical relationship, people are afraid if something doesn't go a specific way, being tied to a conservative belief could make you a quote unquote threatening person.
Yeah, people might not feel safe with you.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, well, do you think this can be extrapolated, or do you think this self-censorship is seen as necessary for young adults of this same age group that are not in college? I need to jump in here and tell you that Conversation Balloons is now part of the Herzog Foundation podcast network. The Herzog Foundation is dedicated to strengthening Christian education and helping families and schools pass faith and wisdom from one generation to the next. You'll still hear the same great commercial-free conversations, now supported by a foundation that shares our heart for truth and understanding across generations. You can learn more at herzogfoundation.com.
This is what we're going to be doing next. I'm going to be I want to speak with the same amount of people that are just in the workforce. I think that what you're saying, what you're getting at with that question, is going to be an important enforcer in what makes this real for us to be worried about. And so, of course, there's going to be issues, I think, with those individuals as well, but I think they'll be very different. And I think that it comes down to a lot of political beliefs. Everything's been politicized now for these young people, whether they're working and not in school or whether they're in school. And so it'll be interesting to see what the similarities and differences are once we get to interviewing that group.
And I even, I've taught at the college level and even grad school level, and it made me wonder if any of the faculty are self-censoring.
This is a great question. That's a great thing to bring up, because they are. I'm trying right now to get another op-ed together with this. We have heard from a number of professors saying that they self-censor.
Oh boy. Yeah, well, and yes, I've literally experienced it in trying to get some things published, and we're going to talk about that in our next conversation with you. I kind of have lived by, as an attorney who's done a lot of First Amendment work in school settings, lived by this quote from Caitian versus Board of Regents of New York that rejected laws that, quote, cast a pall of orthodoxy over the classroom. And I think we do have a pretty monolithic, um, secondary education and post-secondary education system. And I'm glad that you've been able to find a way to empirically show what's going on in the students' minds, and it needs a lot more investigation and exposure. I think you're onto something important. Um, do you have any recommendations for the parents of students going off to college?
I that's a good question. I do get this question quite a bit, and so my answer is different. I think for every parent because um, these are amazing schools that I'm talking about where these issues are happening, and there's so many wonderful things that that also are provided at these institutions on top of this issue. The University of Michigan is an amazing place to be 18 to 22 years old. And even when they are self censoring with themselves, those kids are fulfilled in many ways. So this is the paradoxical issue is when does it become such an issue? Like what students are the ones that don't recover from this? That's one of the issues here because many of them will move on with their lives, some won't. And not to take this in a dark place, but this issue does radicalize students, specific students though, not all. And so if I see a parent trying to ask me about their young kid and I see the kid has tendencies already in high school, it becomes more of a problematic and serious answer, which is I would send the student to a southern school, frankly. If it's a more balanced young person, I would say, risk it if you're going to. I wouldn't send them to an Ivy League school at this point, but that's just um, my personal opinion. That needs to be hashed out hard at those institutions, and I think they're trying. I mean, I think that people like me are coming out of the woodwork now. I'm a part of a number of organizations that want reform to occur, and I think providing data like mine, is a way to make that uh, actually occur in real time. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough call because like the two schools where I've done this research are just fantastic places to be young. It's just unfortunate that this is part of their youth that they'll never get back. This fact, yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. I couldn't think more highly of Northwestern, apart from this. And, so it's good to hear you have a balanced view that you can see, positive things that these schools are doing. Well, keep up the good work and certainly come back to us, and we wanna talk further with you about some of your research and some things I'm thinking about, and, we really
Yep.
appreciate having you on. Kevin Waldman of Psych Forum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Subscribe and review Conversation Balloons on your favorite podcast platform. Find me at leahfarish.com and on Instagram at LEAHFARISH. This episode is brought to you by the Herzog Foundation. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Herzog Foundation.